Phew. Yay, we exist. Huzzah. Alright. Well, I exist at least. Everything else, maybe not so much. It's all fun. I need to make larger hooks for these on the back of my chair, because clearly they don't fit well. That's okay. A lot has happened since the last sewing stream. In fact, so much so that we have pretty much the entire bodysuit done. Sans a few little details. I don't mean to do so much stuff off of stream, I really don't. I do try to avoid sewing on the machine on stream though, because it's loud as shit. So, our big thing right now is I am currently stitching up the leg, this last leg, onto the bodysuit, which I'm almost done with. I just have to do the zigzag all the way around, I think, is all that's left. Oh, no, I have to finish trimming it. Then I have to do the zigzag. Where did I leave off on the trimming? There it is. Because what I end up doing is I brush out the extra fur from the inside of these seams, because they aren't actually meant to be in the seams at all. It's what causes the really noticeable seam lines on bodysuits, is the excess amount of fur trapped in the seams. So if it's not in front of where you stitched, it doesn't need to be there. Which means I'm just going to cut off. I usually brush out the seams and then cut off all that extra fur before I do a zigzag to double stitch my seams. Which this is the last seam that needs double stitching, so. Well, this spot in particular, though, might need. Oh, no, it managed. Okay. Got real close, but it managed. Like that spot just got real close, because I'm an idiot. Alright. And now, just for the sake of everyone's ears, I am going to mute myself, because the sewing machine's loud. Of course, it helps if the sewing machine actually sews in the first place. That's usually beneficial. Why did we decide to do that, buddy? Okay, interesting. Okay, why? What is our problem? It's an interesting problem to have. For no reason, I guess. Okay. Oh, it's upside down. Now, I don't know what the issue is here because it is threaded correctly in the holder. The issue might just be that I had it started on a zigzag. I don't know. Let's see if this works. Okay, seriously. You know, this thing was behaving fine all morning until I started streaming, and now all of a sudden it doesn't want to behave anymore. Okay. Although that might have been it. That right there, because I don't think it was actually threaded through the top properly, which means it wouldn't have had enough tension. It's usually the case. When in doubt, rethread. Problem solved. Back to muting. Onion rings. Huzzah. Alright. Oh, there we go. Cool beans. Alright. That is all of the machine sewing for this suit. Aside from possibly a zigzag on the gore patch. But for right now, I have to hand sew the gore patch in because it's minky. We want it to look nice, and it's a circle, and if you make a circle not look nice, it just looks wonky. Gore patch. Ooh, actually, I'm a liar. Hold on. We're gonna have to cut some fabric. First, I need to find out where I put my tape measure. I think it's in the kitchen. Because we need to do 20 1, which means if it's 25, which... So 20 and a 5-inch. Okay. This is where things get interesting, because... Whoop! Well, there goes that. Sit this over here. Fur tufts everywhere. This is the pocket that I'll need to sew in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. There are 9 of them. I dropped one like the other day, and it just straight up disappeared into the ether that is apparently a hardwood floor. So we'll find it when I step on it, I suppose. But the upside is it's definitely on the floor somewhere, and not in the fursuit. That's what matters. Clip all these extra tufts. All these extra clumps of fur everywhere. Alright. What did I say? I said 20 and 5. Right. I need the cream, and I need this. Except this is not a wide enough cut, and I don't want to do multiple cuts. So this will be scrap still. This isn't even for this commission. This. I think we're done with this at this point. This was never used. Cream. And the brown. Alright. I said 20 and 5, right? That's what I said. As long as I know what I said, that's what matters. It's 25-inch circumference. This is such a weird cut of fabric. Cool. Thanks, Past Me, for doing that. Why? What? Like... What even is the shape? Past Me is a dick. Alright. Current Me is very upset with Past Me. I know you guys can't really see from that angle here. Hold on. Shoot. Now you can see more of the office. Hooray! The office is a mess right now, but don't worry about it. It's been chaos lately. Where did I put the tape measure? Sharpie. Come here, Sharpie. Thank you. And this is essentially going to be the sleeve for our tail. So that way when we attach our belt, since it's got such a wide base, the belt loops are far enough apart that we can't just put it through a little hole. It would be super visible. So we're going to give it a sleeve. Problem is I'm trying to make it parallel to the actual fabric, which is easier said than done. $20 to 1 inches. It doesn't need to be a super long cut. A few inches is plenty. And generally I do taper it a little bit the further out you go, because oftentimes the tail gets wider. So coming off the body, you want it to be able to fit the tail. That being said, it does have a downward slope, so we're not too worried about the top part having a taper as much as the bottom part does. Which this goes in this color wraps around towards the bottom anyway. Life's that rough, huh, people? Except I'm a little bit of a dingleberry, and I did my taper in the wrong direction. So, I'm gonna fix that. There we go. And then I'm just going to cut the excess so I know which lines I actually follow when I'm sewing. There's the brown strip. You can put this back in the basket for the furs. One of these days, these furs will get folded up really nice and put away. But I use them so often when making the suits. That was a garbage scrap. Anyway, I'm tired, if you couldn't tell. Big eepies. What did I say, 5 inches? And then I actually do want this piece so I can estimate, because I didn't measure how tall I made it. Just kind of giving it a rough scale, which is fine. Alright. So now we have our strips. Ugh. And like I said, we'll sew these together and then we'll sew them with the gore patch onto the bodysuit. Which again is kind of finicky, so we have to hand sew it. And then, if we're lucky, go back over that seam with a zigzag stitch. But odds are I'm just going to have to do a straight and then a blanket stitch by hand. Since the belt comes in through this part of the suit, this is one of the most reinforced areas because it gets a lot of constant pressure put on it. That, as well as the crotch, usually get a lot of extra reinforcing. But everything, no matter what, is double stitched. For the bodysuit, at least. Most of the other parts don't need it. Hi, Luna! You just missed it. I was hanging out on the floor. Thank you for the hydrate. It's Coke today. Which, as we all know, is super hydrating. Currently, I am working on sewing in stuff and things. Hold on, bring home. Yeah, this way. Okay, cool. I'm so tired. We're sewing parts for the bodysuit. And this is going to be the sleeve for the tail because it's got such a large base. I'm also realizing that everybody probably couldn't hear me very well while I was on the floor, so I was just blabbing to myself. It's fine. Go. Hello, baby mans. Can I help you, sir? He's very bored. He's been bored all day, even though we went to OUT and PLA wide for a while this morning. And he'll get to do some more after we're done sewing on stream. But alas, he's still bored. Alright. That sounded crunchy. That's fine. Crunchy's fine. Probably, maybe, hopefully. It's fine. Definitely looped around a bit, though. This is also why we double stitch, because sometimes the stitching isn't always great. Onion rings. And now we have our little sleeve. That should hopefully look relatively seamless over top of the tail. Oh. There's a lot of excess fur on this outer edge, though. I'm gonna pluck real quick. This stuff, oh, it sheds like crazy. Almost as bad as beaver does. This is why I don't use beaver fur. Beaver fur sheds insanely horribly. Plus, they just don't offer a lot of colors in beaver anymore, which really sucks. Like, they have black, they have brown, and that's kind of it. White. Which is kind of annoying, to be honest. Alright. Now we're done with the sewing machine. This time we're done. Ooh. Bodysuits. Okay, so now the big thing is stitching this in to here. I'm actually going to... come here. Of course you would. Why wouldn't you wrap around my scissors? There we go. I'll tell you what, if there's one thing this thing does, it's be a pain in my ass. Alright. We're going to stitch this point together. That rough, huh? Okay. So now that we have this point connected, we can start stitching in this in the gore patch. Which I am now realizing this is a lot longer on the brown than it is on the cream. So, shit. I should have measured the bodysuit and not the tail, but... because this is the right length overall, it's just not the right color length. Which sucks. Okay. New plan. I'm just going to cut that straight off because we know the brown needs to be shorter anyway. And then we're going to measure that piece because that's how wide we actually need it to be. Don't know how I measured wrong the first time. So we've got 10. We need the white piece to be 10 inches, not 5. Which means if it's 25 inches, it's 15 for this piece. Which means this one needs to be a lot shorter. I'm going to give it 16 inches so it has a seam allowance. There we go. So upside, we're not wasting too much fabric. Still get to use the original brown piece. We just have to make a new cream piece. This is why we order extra of the furs we buy. Because sometimes we aren't the brightest. And we don't know how to measure. So now, with our newfound knowledge, we know we need a piece about that tall. That long. Cool. Alright, one more try. And then we should be done. I know what I'm doing, I swear. Sometimes. Bum, 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 bum. Bum, ba-dum, bum, bum. Ba-dum, bum, bum, ba-dum, ba-da-da-da-da. I'm gonna go like this. Yeah. So I gotta make sure that the fur is going the same direction, because I swear, I was gonna be so mad. Oh, my bottom bobbin ran out of thread. Cool. Okay. There we go. Cool. I know for a fact this one little bitty thread that's peeking out is gonna be the death of me if I don't fix that. Bingus, are you good, babe? Okay. As long as you're good. Bingus, if you're hot, go in the living room. He's like, no, I don't wanna. Cool beans. Alright. Now! I promise, guys. I swear. This time. Were you guys gonna tell me that he was on the fur? You're spoiled. You're a spoiled little baby. Uh-huh. He's been kicked off of fur. Well, not literally kicked, but you know, told to get off of fur enough times that he knows if I start walking towards him, nope, I'm not supposed to be on that. He has a habit of wanting to lay on the pieces that I'm actively about to use, and he's like, well, comfy. Well, you know, I figured you guys would tell me that my son is over there committing fuzzy crimes. Yes, you are. You can't just be cute and get away with it. That's not how this works. Okay, this is the narrow end. He's like, but mother. Yes, Bingus, you're cute too. Calm down. There we go. Bingo, stop breathing! Good Lord. She's like, fine, I'll stop breathing. I am probably going to go back around this entire gore patch with the sewing machine for the double stitching. Just because I would still like it to be stitched in nicely. And then we'll sew in the gore patch. In fact, if we're lucky, we might be able to get the gore patch in after this, and then do the machine stitching. And get all of it nice and double stitched. See, now this was lined up 2 seconds ago. What in the world? That's lined up. Guys, I'm about to beat somebody. I'm about to beat me because me doesn't know how to measure. this is, so far on this bodysuit, this is the one spot that has been hand sewn. But I'll have to hand sew the lining as well, because we do have the lining over there in a big old pile that I already got stitched all together and stuff. That will have to be hand sewn in as well. But the lining itself is machine sewn, so, you know, small wins. And then because I can, I'm going to tie a knot right here and stitch in the other direction so that way no matter what, the white will line up. And then we can figure out the brown from there. Hi, buddy. For realsies? Right this minute? You gotta go potty? The one day. Can you wait like 15 more minutes? No, you wanna go right now? Okay, hold on. We will be right back, I suppose. Alright. The dogs have been released into the wild, never to return. It's fine. Alright. I'm going to start from this side of it. And then we'll hand sew this way. Dun, dun. This is one of those days where I wish hand sewing didn't take as long as it did, because machine sewing is so much quicker, but hand sewing isn't always practical, unfortunately. Because like this will get machine sewn once when I finish hand sewing it. I'll go back over with the machine to do a zigzag. But yeah, because I think because I have to do holes, I'm going to go over it with a zigzag, and then I'm going to hand stitch using a blanket stitch, most likely, the gore patch into the same seam. Because there's certain spots that I need to not be stitched at all, that I do need to also be zigzagged on this part of the bodysuit. It doesn't make sense, but it does make sense. You hear me? Like, you feel? It's complicated. It's a little annoying, honestly. But we'll figure it out. It'll be fine. Biggest thing is making sure that there's room in those holes for a wider belt. It's a big enough tail that I wanted to get a wide belt for it. I like to use the woven belts though, and it was pretty difficult to find a 2-inch belt. In fact, it was impossible for me to find a 2-inch woven belt. But I did find a 1.5, which is still a pretty good size. And should be plenty comfortable. Because this tail's not super heavy, but it is as big as I am, so it's got a little bit of heft to it. But I like the woven belts because they have a bit of stretch, and they're really adjustable, which is nice. I did find some padded belts, but those were 3-inch belts, which would not fit. So, you know, that was a problem. Right off the bat. Which isn't to say you can't make a padded sleeve for a belt to make it fit more comfortably. That would actually be fairly easy to do, I would think. It might be a little bit warmer though, but it would be more comfortable. So I'm really just thinking like those car seatbelt covers that people make for their kids when they're younger. Nobody likes the texture of seat belts anyway. They're super scratchy. Especially if, like me, you're short and nothing fits you, so everything's scratchy, itchy, abrasive horribleness. I feel like you could just make a couple of those, one for each side, to put onto your belt. If you want to make a smaller belt padded, otherwise you're better off making a larger belt padded. Just getting a larger padded belt. But I think a lot of like the belt you wear and stuff like that is really up to preference, you know? Like, not everybody likes the woven belts like I do. I like them because I am teeny tiny. And even belts in my size tend not to cinch down tight enough to my liking. Which sucks. Because, like, I too would like to wear a belt and have it fit me. Like, I don't know what their reasoning is. For some reason, when they get to smaller belt sizes, they put in fewer holes for you to cinch your belt into, which is dumb. That or they put them all close together, like, they just scale down the spacing between them, and it's like, okay, well now instead of adjusting an entire 5 inches, it adjusts 2.5. So it doesn't actually fit the smaller belt range. So they have to buy an even smaller belt, but half of those don't fit, because they're children's belts. And I have hips. So I like the stretch belt because you can literally cinch it anywhere on the belt without having to worry about it slipping like some of the folded belts do. And of course you can always go with an old style belt that doesn't have a clasp at all and just tie the knot, but then you have a knot holding a bunch of weight, and that's not comfy either. And then you have to go to the bathroom. That's a lot to undo. God forbid you tied that knot too good. It would not be a fun day. Ha ha ha. So you know, it's like neither here nor there. It's all up to preference. But as far as like the larger tails go, I try to give them larger belt loops as well to fit larger belts because ow. So for the floor draggers, I always try to make at least a 2-inch opening for 2-inch wide belts. And if it's particularly long, with a large enough base, I'll try to go for 3 inches, but I haven't had to make too many giant tails, so because like, I don't know about you guys, but if I'm gonna run around in a fursuit for hours on end, I want to be comfortable doing it. There we go. Hi, baby mans. Okay. Just came in to stare at me, I guess. All of the children have returned from their outdoor adventures. Oh, I know why he's bugging me. He wants DINNER. FOOD. Yeah, I know. I know it. I think you'll be okay. Also, your hair is in your eyeballs, bud. It is, it's in your eyeballs. We're back to the good old problems with the hair, huh? We're trying to grow his hair back out, but I want to grow it out long enough that I can actually tie it back on him, because I get really annoyed at having to trim his eyebrows like every couple of weeks, solely because they just don't... They just straight down, which is stupid. You got too much hair. Yeah, you got too much hair. And it just comes down into your eyeballs. But I get very tired of him not being able to see. Yeah. And then having to trim his just around his eyes all the time. So we're trying to grow him out long enough to actually tie his hair back. But I swear, the rest of his head grows faster than the front. And apparently now we're itchy. Yeah, was that a good scratch? Was that a good scratch? I know what you want. You're not getting it right now. Go ask your dad. Go ask your dad. He's not busy. I promise. Go get him. This is 90% of my day. You wouldn't think it's annoying, but he's just constantly from somewhere staring at you. You can't see it, but he's still staring at me, just from over there, while laying down. And he needs his feet shaved. I didn't shave his feet when I did his haircut yesterday. Say, no, I didn't. That's okay, though. Are you comfy? I have been stabbed. Ouch. There we go. I feel like this song just goes on forever. Has it just been playing this one song this whole time? Because I feel like the answer is yes. No, it's just a really long song. Can we... I got tired of that song. It was only halfway through that song. Almost done. It's this little chunk. There we go. Shoopy. And that is the butthole tube. Just the tube, though. Alright. So now I'm going to trim the excess fabric around the edges, because we don't need the world's thickest seams on the planet. Go. Alright. Back to being noisy. I'm gonna mute me. So. not my glasses! You frickin' butthole. I don't want to touch it, because if I do, there's just going to be a smear of dog snot all over my glasses. Did you really have to touch my glasses with your face? With your wet little face? Oh, you butthole. You're so rude. He's a big old butthole. Alright, now we get to hand sew in the gore patch, which is the most annoying part. I am looking at it. I'm definitely just going to blanket stitch it in. He just burped at me. I'm going to blanket stitch it in because I have a feeling that's pretty much the only way I'm going to be able to stitch it while keeping the spacing that I need. And then we'll put it all on the dummy, see how it looks, see how it fits. Because I haven't tried it on since yesterday. And yesterday he didn't have legs, so I'd be very upset if his legs don't fit. It would also be a first, though, honestly. So, ouch, I've been stabbed. There we go. So what I'm going to do first is make little anchor points where I'm stitching, just because otherwise the gore patch might end up off center or uneven. So I have to do a couple stitches at the bottom and a couple stitches at the top to make sure that everything is where it's supposed to be. I think also I'm going to trim excess allowance. From off the gore patch. Because I don't think we need like a full inch of seam allowance for this. It's a little crazy, a little silly. There we go. Alright. Just really itchy. Alright. So now, straight up. And this is the hard part, is I don't, there we go. I was like, I don't necessarily have a seam, but I do have the center line from the body piece, so that works out in our favor. And all of the stitching right here too, since there's multiple layers of fabric and yada yada, this should actually help prevent stretching Normally I don't have this many seams right here with smaller tails, so I use a little bit of hot glue underneath the belt loop hole around the fabric that I stitch in there. Because I do line my belt holes. So between the lining and the fur, I'll put a little bit of hot glue just to reinforce it. So that way it's good stuff. So we go like this. And I'm just going to blanket stitch around because it's a lot of work otherwise. And then since we have full body lining, I don't need to make separate lining pieces for the belt holes. I'll just stitch the lining to it, and then if needed, secure them a bit more with some hot glue. Because all that does is really, hot glue doesn't flex as much as the fabric does, and it seeps in really nicely, so all it does is it makes it a bit thicker and sturdier around the belt hole so they don't stretch out over time. Which is nice, because you don't want saggy booty. No saggy booties. Forrest, go lay down. Now. Thank you, good boy. He does this thing when he gets bored where he just suddenly starts pacing and whining, and he won't stop. Good boy. He needs to learn to be okay with being bored for a couple hours. You will be okay. You will not explode. Boy. There we go. And now we're going to stitch to the other side of the belt loop hole. And then hopefully I'll be able to show you guys what I've got going on here with this weirdness. Because I don't know that too many people do this on their suits. I do know of a couple people that do the sleeves, and I do know of a few people that do the gore patches, but I don't know if there's too many that do both. But I feel like this is the best of both worlds, because you get the really cute, looks like you ripped off your tail gore patch, and then you also get The nice smooth seam. Seamless look, I should say, on your tail. And this isn't an extra, this is a default with any large base tails. So if you have a tail that is particularly thick, it'll get the gore patch. Just because it's going to have separated sides of a belt versus sides of a belt that are like 2 inches apart, you know? It makes a big difference. There we go. So there's the top section above the belt loop sewn in. And now we get to flip them around. And we're essentially just going to skip a 2-inch section on each side. Well, this side doesn't really look like 2 inches because they've got tightened. So we'll just go a little bit further than what the line marks say. There we go. And we're going to try to stitch around. But then you'll see, here, since I've got a few stitches done, if you come in through the opening, or if it would get out of the way, there we go. There is a nice wide hole for the belt to come through. I suspect the hardest part will be maintaining that width when I get the bodysuit lining installed. Because I want to actually measure it. Yeah, because the tape measure says 2 1/4. But I know folding over the fabric kind of tightens the holes a little bit. So I just really want to make sure that you'll actually be able to get a belt through there, which is also another reason why I like the woven belts, is because they're flexible. You can usually squish them through areas smaller than their width. So if you were to get a 2-inch belt, you might still be able to fit it through a 1.5-inch hole, but then have that extra width around your waist that's more comfortable. So I like that they're a bit forgiving as a belt, and also, you know, just generally flexible. Which, I don't know, I might start getting into making my own belts that are like custom woven, custom colored belts. Because I think it'd be cool to be able to get a belt that is your persona's colors. All woven together and stuff. They'd be pretty expensive belts, though, unfortunately. But I could also offer solid color belts to go with tails. Future me ideas is what I think that is. The needle doesn't really want to go through the fabric since it's already double stitched right there. But I'm making it do it anyway. Mwahaha. And then of course we're just doing a blanket stitch all the way around for this part anyway. So. Just gonna pretend he's not there. Because if you pretend he's not there, he'll go away. He's trying to look out the window, but the curtains are closed. Alright, and now I'm running out of thread, so I'm gonna have to... tie a knot off here. There we go. Cool beans. And now we're back to staring. Cool. There we go. See, now he's being a good boy laying down. Swoop. Here we go. This is also what's going to make it tedious to sew in the bodysuit lining. Is now I've got this huge pile of fur that I'm having to adjust and stuff. And then I'll have a huge pile of cotton fabric that I'll also have to adjust. And I have multiple seams that I'll have to pin down, so edges that I'll have to sew. Because like it'll get stitched down in a lot of areas. Pretty much anywhere there's a seam, it'll get a few tacking stitches just to hold it to the bodysuit. So like around this hole, there'll be a couple stitches around the top and around the sides. Just a small handful, just enough to hold it there. It's not really a structural thing. But then along seams like around the wrists where the cuff ends, that entire seam is going to be hand sewn. On each hand, on each foot, around the neckline, all that good stuff. So that's going to be a little annoying. But it's fine. The difference too is the neckline is going to get bias tape, the rest of it's not. And of course he's decided he's going to lay on the lining now, so. You're a spoiled little baby. He's like, oh, this thing you're talking about right now? You mean my bed? Apparently I took all of the other comfortable spots for him, as if he doesn't have a mat over here to lay on. It's not as good as my fabrics, apparently. Okay, I don't know what stitch that was, but it works. Like a twisted blanket stitch. This is where my years of crocheting come into sewing, is doing blanket stitches. Because a big thing with crocheting is you have your hook in one hand and your yarn in the other, and you have it over your finger so you can grab the yarn and crochet with it. But I'm using it to hold up the thread so I can bring my needle underneath to make the blanket stitch. That was always the fun thing for me, is like seeing what overlap there is between different skills and hobbies. Except there's a lot of overlap between knitting and crochet, mostly in materials. Oh my, there we go. But there's also an overlap between crochet and sewing, and like just the different motor skills you use for them, as well as different methods for putting things together. Oh, I see. That got stitched a little funky. Gotcha. I was like, why does this look weird? It's just me. And then we're going to do the same thing on this side. We don't come all the way up to the line, we're going to come up just under it. so itchy. Itchy face. Like, I don't know if my skin's dry or what, but that one cheek is just so itchy. Maybe it's covered in fur. It's entirely possible that it's just covered in fur. Because I know there's some on my face. All over my face. So maybe that's just what's making me feel itchy, is fur stuck to my face all over. Because like I said, this stuff in particular sheds so much. There we go. I need to come back to that. That one spot, even though it is double stitched, didn't get got in that pass. So I'm gonna go back, I'm gonna hand stitch a second pass on top of the second pass. Just to make it extra secure, because I'd rather it be extra secure than pop a seam later. Not that it should be popping seams in the first place, this stuff is pretty sturdy. I have to sneeze. Oh goodness. Anyway. No, I don't. No sneeze for me. It's in there. It wants to happen, but it's not going to now. It's been too long. Took too long to sneeze. Sneezing privileges have been revoked. Come on. Come on, come on, there we go. Now I don't know that we're gonna have time to do much more on stream today, because hand sewing is always slow. But at the very least, I hope I can get him onto the dummy for you guys and show you what we have so far. There we go. Oh, come on. There we go. Oh, big sigh, Bingo. Big sigh. Whoop, whoop. See, now this is a thick spot right here, so it doesn't want to actually... There we go. Go through the seam. This is why sometimes I have to use pliers. It's just because sometimes stuff's thick. Dummy thick. He has died. He's withering away. And there. There we go. Oh, come on. Yay. Cool beans. Alright. Now that part's entirely stitched in. I'm gonna go back over to that one spot that I saw and fix that. Because there is, it's like a T seam is what I call it, a three-way seam, where there's already a seam there, but then it's coming up to another seam, so it makes a T. Sometimes, even though this all got stitched fairly okay, it came up really close to the edge of one of the fabrics because of that other seam. And we'll go over it with the machine. So it didn't exactly get the second pass like I was hoping to hold it together. So we're just gonna do a few blanket stitches real quick. Itchy nose. There we go. And this is just gonna make sure that spot does in fact stay stitched together nicely. Just in case. There we go. And that was only a few stitches, so it wasn't a big thing. But now we've got our gore patch sewn in. with its holes for the tail. And actually, bring our big boy corpse over. Lock the two wheels that are completely useless because the other ones still roll. I know. And I'm going to flip them out and put them on. Now, of course, there's a lot of small details yet to do for this bodysuit, such as the lining in the pocket and brushing out seams and sewing our cuffs, all that good stuff. But, for the most part, it's about done. The fur, at least, is done. The fur exists. Like you can see right here, it looks like it's way off, but it's not. It just needs to be brushed out. And I'll probably do the same thing on the seam for this arm, where it'll look like it's not aligned. And that one doesn't look as bad, but that one also looks like it's more brushed out. So now we're just gonna shorten it a little bit. Put your leg in. Not into the armhole, just into the bodysuit. It would probably help if I unzipped the bodysuit. Well, this is the hard part. Is that duct tape dummies don't generally cooperate when you're trying to put stuff on them. They're kind of like toddlers. They will do everything in their power to not be put into a fursuit. Except I think toddlers would be thrilled to be put into an animal costume. Most of them, anyway. Come on, thigh, move, get in there. Give way. There we go. Now, normally, as a human being, you wouldn't have to do that. That's because, as a human being, you would be actively trying to put on the suit and not be a stiff body full of duct tape, trying to fight me at every whim. Now, as we could see, maybe if I bring him closer to you guys are kind of at a funky angle. He exists. He's mostly sewn together. You guys can't see up to his neckline. Or if I push him over here, can you see him better? He does still have this strip right here where his zipper is. I just haven't gotten around to trimming that yet, is all. We do still see some seam lines, like right here is where a pocket is going to go, so it's a pretty big seam line right there. This side's not as bad, but it still needs to be brushed out. And the problem is it is a shorter pile of fur, so a lot of these seams are just going to show anyway. But they'll look much better once we have the padding in and they get brushed and picked out nicely. Oh, big yawn, baby mans. But now we can see we've got our gore patch butthole, which is very silly. In fact, I know this belt's not going to fit around him, but I can kind of preview for you guys how this works. So normally you would get your belt, which also has the gore patch. You put your belt through it, and then I'm going to unzip his front zipper so I can reach in and around. Which side's left? This is the left side. Okay, so we're going to put this one first. Now again, if this were an actual person, I wouldn't have to fight it to get the belt in. And then we're just going to do the same through the other hole. And again, this belt is not this person's belt, so it does not fit their body. Then what you would essentially do is either reach behind you and just kind of feel for it, or get a buddy to help you. And then you would tuck that sheath right over top, which the tail did not want to stay, but you know, it smooths out and it sits nicely on top of the tail. Makes it look a bit more seamless. Yeah, because then you don't see the belt coming out of the side of the tail, which is nice. Plus, when you rip your tail off, your tail got ripped off, and I think it's really cute. That's just me. I'll put this back. Hanging up here, though. I don't really know how I had it tied before, but I sure did. Alright. And that is enough for one day, I think. I'm hoping to get... Bingus, you're stinky. I'm hoping to get his bodysuit lining in today, at least somewhat. And then it's mostly details after this, as far as doing the cuffs, finishing up that zipper, picking the seams. Yes, hi, baby mask. Hello. Hello, hi. Calm down. The dogs are very excited for the stream to be over. So, we'll call it good, and I will hopefully see you guys tomorrow for some sort of gaming stream.